Welcome everyone to this webinar on the finding of the research driving sustainability strategy home, effective practices that takes business impact beyond profits. I'm Tahirou Assane, the director of Brightline at Project Management Institute, PMI. This research is really the result of a close collaboration and engagement between Project Management Institute, PMI, Brightline Initiative, and Harvard Business Review Analytic Services. The webinar will have three parts. First, we'll have opening remarks. And then in second part, we'll have a presentation of the finding of the research. And we will end with a panel discussion on the finding of the research. Now let us get started with the opening remark. We are privileged to welcome our President and CEO, Pierre Le Manh, to offer some opening remarks. Pierre, whenever you're ready, the floor is yours.
Thank you for joining us today to discuss the importance of sustainability strategies. But it is important to understand also why they need to be driven by the executive level. So like Tahirou just said, our webinar today is based on research. It's research in which we surveyed over 500 executives worldwide. It was conducted in 2023 by Harvard Business Review Analytic Services and by PMI Brightline. Now, to put this in context, I guess we can all agree that the world is at the crossroads. There are very challenging problems that need to be addressed if we want humanity to live together more harmoniously or even survive. Think of climate change and depletion of resources, of course, but also technological advancement and their ethical implications. Think of global health, of demographic issues, of economic inequality and poverty. All of these contribute to division and polarization between nations and within societies. Now, just a few words about PMI, the Project Management Institute. So in a nutshell, we upskill and reskill people managing projects. So we call them project professionals. So they improve continuously. So they get more effective at delivering projects, at driving change, and at leading transformations. So in other words, at getting things done. So when we help project professionals make each of their projects successful in a way that is also responsible and meaningful, we can contribute together to addressing at least some of the big issues that humanity is facing, one successful and responsible project at a time. And in the end, we can make our world better. PMI is a for-purpose corporation, and that is exactly PMI's purpose, elevating our world by maximizing project success. Now, just a point of clarification, within PMI, Brightline is a specific initiative. It is a team that partners with both leading companies and educational institutions. And its mission is really to help executives bridge the gap between strategy and execution, because of course, even the best strategic plans are only impactful if they are successfully executed. So I would like to thank the PMI Brightline team, the other PMI teams who have been involved, our thought leadership team, our marketing team, who have contributed to the success of this report and in fact, initiated its creation in the first place. So now let's talk about the report itself and a few of the insights that it uncovered. Executive leaders in most organizations around the world would agree, and I hope you agree, that the path to a thriving future lies not just in digital transformations or even in initiatives that aim at achieving greater customer satisfaction, for instance, although of course they are extremely important. But the path to a thriving future requires more than that. It requires equally a strong sustainability strategy that is positioned at the center of everything the organization does. Now, of course, creating and implementing a sustainability strategy is not an easy journey. So today, I would like to focus on three main findings from the research, which I believe can inform a successful approach to sustainability. First, as you will see in the data provided by this research, all stakeholders, including customers, investors, employees. They're all prioritizing organizations that demonstrate a genuine commitment to environmental and social responsibility. Organizations that proactively and genuinely embrace sustainability build resilience. They attract top talent. They ensure their long-term growth and survival. Now, on the other hand, organizations that do not genuinely embrace sustainability are more vulnerable to disruption, to regulatory pressure, or to even reputational damage. Now, the next point I would like to mention is that only when sustainability becomes a core tenet of your overall strategy can it truly permeate your organization. When the CEO sets sustainability as the strategic guiding star, you begin to see every action within the organization aligning with the overall sustainability goals. So this clear strategic direction coming from the top is the key to ensuring consistent and continual progress as all stakeholders embrace social responsibility goals. Now, embracing sustainability creates value for the organization from an external perspective. But it also unlocks a culture of innovation internally as people rethink processes, business models, sourcing strategies. Creativity is unlocked. And I am personally a great believer in that constraints do not hamper, but foster creativity. And we see many examples of this, for example, in cleaner energy solutions or in redesigned and more efficient supply chains that show how sustainable practices can truly become a springboard for creating competitive advantage. Another reason why sustainability must be driven by the executive level is, of course, because it requires significant investment and a reallocation of resources, a reallocation of both talent and capital. So without the full commitment of the CEO and actually also of their board, it is difficult or even impossible for an executive team or for other leaders to make the changes that are necessary. And it is not just at the executive level that the impact from the CEO's commitment would be felt. When employees see a genuine commitment to sustainability coming from the top, it fosters a sense of purpose, a sense of belonging. Employees feel empowered to contribute because they feel a stronger personal bond with the higher purpose of the organization. They know that their efforts and their ideas will be valued and also valued over the long term, which drives increased engagement and higher productivity and loyalty. And of course, it makes the job of the talent acquisition team much easier, especially if you think of the younger generations of talents. And finally, my third learning from the report is not a very big surprise, but it deserves to be mentioned over and over again, in my opinion. As your organization is making progress toward its goals, it is very important to communicate and celebrate success. When CEOs show personal and genuine commitment, when they set ambitious but realistic goals, and then regularly report progress on these goals, their transparency and their personal accountability builds trust. So, if I may summarize, a genuine commitment to sustainability reflected in the purpose of the organization, supported by the personal engagement of the CEO and a very concrete reallocation of resources, together with transparency and constant celebration of progress, those are the keys to bridge sustainability strategies to execution and to ensuring long-term success. Now, with this, let's hear more about the research findings, the insights, the perspectives from our subject matter experts and our panelists who are joining us today. So for that, I will now turn it over to Alex Clemente, who is the Managing Director of Harvard Business Review Analytic Services. Alex, thank you so much for joining us today. and of course, for leading this research effort. So over to you.
Yeah, thank you so much for that introduction, Pierre. When the PMI Brightline initiative approached us about conducting this research, we were extremely receptive to this idea, and that's because the editors of Harvard Business Review view sustainability as one of the major pillars of business strategy for the present and for the future. And as we've seen, it's become a critical objective for most companies, increasingly influencing their overall business strategy, their culture, and their ways of working. But we also see that many organizations face significant challenges to achieving these sustainability goals. Now, with this body of research, our goal was to ascertain where organizations are in the development and the execution of their sustainability goals. Because it's important that you know what metrics also that you have to measure to gauge your performance. And as management guru Peter Drucker once famously said, you can't manage what you don't measure. Another thing is we see that obviously 2024 is an election year in the United States. And I bring this up because we saw two very different agendas for sustainability between the past two US federal administrations. But what we saw is an extremely positive trend that emerged in that time was that the private sector continued their focus on their sustainability targets in spite of a seesaw federal policy on sustainability. And indeed, the private sector can lead the charge and the change on sustainability, especially where governments are failing. Also, research shows that sustainability stands to be a driver of organizational and technological innovation that yields both top-line returns as well as bottom-line results. And becoming environment friendly lowers costs because business organizations end up reducing the inputs that they use. Smart organizations are now treating sustainability as a catalyst of innovation. But while these organizations have targeted sustainability as a goal, many do struggle with the way to manage it. And this is because sustainability needs to encompass all of your ecosystem, from your buildings to your products, to your people, your processes, as well as your supply chains. It requires a more holistic approach to managing across the enterprise and the ecosystem. So it is a complex thing to manage. It is something, as Pierre mentioned, that the leadership of the organization has to take charge of and allow it to permeate the organization. And so hopefully you're going to find today's presentation inspirational, useful, and instructive. And lastly, I want to just say that we applaud the PMI Brightline initiative for sponsoring this program on sustainability. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Pierre. Thank you so much, Alex, for these opening remarks. Really appreciated. Now we'll move to the next phase of the presentation today. We'll start sharing some insights. Actually, we do have a few poll questions that we want to ask you. So let's start with the first one. And the first one is mainly asking you, how effective is your organization at implementing its sustainability efforts? So there'll be the poll that will show up shortly, and we look forward to hear from you. Of course, these are anonymous, so what happened in Vegas stays in Vegas, or what happened in Teams stays in Teams. So we're hoping to get more than 100 people responding, at least to see if there is a trend here. So what we're seeing here is very effective, is hovering around 13%, and yeah, not effective at all at 11%. And then we have somewhat effective 45% and somewhat ineffective 19%. Thank you so much for playing along and responding to this first one. Does your organization have a sustainability strategy? You will say, Tahirou, why you asked me the first question before going back to the second one? Thank you. So let us move to the actual research itself. And really, our intent in this part of the presentation is to examine the current state of sustainability around the globe and also explore what is enabling leaders to implement their strategy more effectively throughout the organization. For the research, there were about 548 people who were surveyed, so 548 respondents. It was from organizations, let's say from 100 people to more than 10,000 employees. Actually, an organization which has more than 10,000, 40% of the mass. And then in terms of seniority, we were looking at all levels, from board members, executive, to senior manager, to middle manager, because we know sustainability permeates through the organization. We also look at different industries, from technology to manufacturing, education, financial services, and others, just to make sure that what we're seeing is more representative. Last but not least, and as you've seen people joining us today, participants today, it was also global, meaning that we covered North America, Europe, APAC, Middle East and Africa, as well as Latin America. So this is really comprehensive because we wanted to see what is happening. What are great organizations doing? What are the challenges? And what are the benefits from sustainability? And is there a way to crack through the sustainability challenge that we see? Because when we talk about sustainability, I mean, sometimes people may offer different definitions. We have seen it, at least from the lens of this research, as the practice of operating a business in a way that meets the three elements: the economic, social, and environmental needs of the present, without at the same time compromising the ability of future generations to meet their own needs. This is at least the definition that is also coined by the United Nations and so on. Now, as part of the research, you saw I asked you if you had a sustainability strategy or how successful was your sustainability effort. As part of the research, we were able to create three key groups. One that we call leaders. These are organizations that are able to implement sustainability across their organization, and they've been doing it effectively. We have followers, who are a group that were able to implement sustainability in part of the organization, and they were somewhat effective or very effective. And then if you take the laggard, they either didn't have, let's say, sustainability from a very systematic way, and at the same time, they were not successful. They were having trouble, challenges in implementing the sustainability strategy successfully. So looking and taking these two groups and having them in mind, let us go to the next phase where we'll talk about challenges that organizations are facing in implementing strategy. Few challenges surface. Of course, everybody agreeing on the criticality of sustainability, but there are many issues. The first one that was coming out is, where do I focus? Where do we as an organization focus our effort to achieve the biggest impact? It was not clear because one can quickly do sabotage, meaning try to do so many things and you're not sure. So organizations are saying, where do I put my money? Where do I put my effort so that I can have the biggest impact? This is one. Second, measuring the environmental and social impact. Organizations are struggling. Third, resource and funding. And Pierre was mentioning the need for having resources, and he was talking about the role of executives in making sure that the resources are allocated. What we saw, the organizations that we're calling laggard, 40% of them are saying when faced with economic challenges, actually sustainability is one of the first things that they cut. So this is not a recipe for success. Next, there is also an inability to measure the impact of sustainability in the context where the ROI is not clear. Last but not least, we have also the tendency of focusing on the short-term investment financial returns and sometimes dismissing the longer goals that we have in terms of delivering sustainable changes in our organization. Now, if we cover these challenges, we may ask why organizations are still pursuing sustainability strategies. We'll move to the next slide and discover what the leaders are doing. And in this slide, we're covering specifically the leaders. The report covers for all of them, leaders, laggards, and followers. For leaders, the key thing that surfaced was seeking better alignment with organizational goals, values, and the overall mission. This is what came up first. And then one thing that is really important, and Pierre highlighted it, it is the right thing to do. meaning that we're doing it because we fundamentally have a sentiment, have a belief that this is the right thing to do. And this one here, it is the right thing to do. None of the laggard nor the follower had it in the top 5. So there was something happening there. Third, corporate reputation, and then customer and consumer expectation. These are some of the things that were driving leaders to make sure that they embark on sustainability and deliver. So the one that I want you to capture is, it is the right thing to do. We'll move to the next one. And then here it is a poll. We talk about the challenges, we talk about the drivers. We would like to hear from you one more time. From the list, the top one is innovative solution for offering and operation. It stands at 37%. And then we have, I think, a kind of tie, improve organizational culture and improve company reputation at 32%. And then we go down to, yes, to improve company valuation, 31%. Additional revenue is low, 14%, and heightened employee engagement, 17%. Okay, thank you so much for participating in this one. Let us share with you what the research has shown. Okay, so this slide shows it. Let's move to the next one where we have a better view so that you can see it in a bigger format here. Excellent. In this slide here, we're showing what came up first from the survey that we undertook. So you will see clearly one of the, I mean, again, going back, I'm trying to remember by memory what was in your input. And improved company reputation was the one which came at the top. And then you'll have improved organizational culture. Heightened employee engagement was actually higher than what our sample provided now. Innovative solution, which we had as number 1 here, is number 4. Enhanced employee experience, number 5. And improve talent. You hear Pierre talk about the talent retention and attracting talent. So improved talent attraction was rating number 6. Now, of course, one thing that I want you to pay attention to is we're showing the laggard and the leaders. You'll see that on all these metrics, the leaders are really way ahead compared to the laggard. And I would like to draw your attention on one that talks about greater customer satisfaction or greater customer loyalty. When we were asking, I mean, that is the laggards, when they were looking at what was the key driver, they said customer experience, consumer experience. That was what they listed as the largest one. But even with them listing it as the number 1 priority for them, you'll see that the leaders are still doing much better than the laggard. So again, going back to what I was saying and maybe asking ourselves, are they meaning really what they're saying, or is it mainly paying lip service? So this is something that we need to consider. Again, a lot of benefits from having sustainability strategy delivered in organizations. And when I look at the employee part, actually, people are looking for a purpose. You know, people are not, I mean, of course, bottom line, but at the end of the day, people want to make a difference in their organization. And they do care about organizations that take sustainability seriously. And it gives you an advantage if you can deliver on the sustainability promises. Let us move to the last part of some of the highlights that we have for you. You may ask now, Tahirou, you're showing a lot of statistics, a lot of numbers. What does it mean for us? Where do we start as an organization? What must we do to make sure that we can deliver on the promises that are being made? 4 key surface. One is, as you heard me say over and over, to do it because it is the right thing to do. You know, all leaders will need to go beyond corporate reputation, beyond customer expectation, regulatory expectation, and embrace sustainability for its inherent rightness, meaning that we're doing it because we believe it is the right thing to do. So purpose-driven. And as we are adopting these purpose-driven values and dedicating, Pierre mentioned it, sufficient budget for the sustainability initiative, we are able to build solid foundation for success. That's number 1. Number 2, number two key, we want to drive sustainability through empowered executives. And you heard again, Pierre making the case for it. We know, at least the survey showing clearly, that executive plays a vital role in driving an effective sustainability strategy. So not lip services, walking the talk. And what executives do you need? You need the executives that are showing a passion, a drive for sustainability, and who have actually a deep knowledge of both business operations and regulatory requirements. So making sure that they understand the context where they are operating, they understand the requirements that are there, and they're driving the organization to provide results. In addition to that, they need a clear mandate. The person who has the authority will need to also have a budget. So they need to have a dedicated budget for the person. And the person who is overseeing sustainability need to be able to hold others accountable to meet the targets that they're setting. Let us not be in a situation where a target is set, and then you come next year, it is moved to the next point, and then you come in the year after. It's what they call a moving target. You want to have leaders accountable for delivering on the promises that they make. Third thing is about emphasizing culture and employee development. This one, I need to say it is key. We need to foster a culture that aligns sustainability and that recognize the pivotal element of this mindset that we need in organization to make sure that we are effective. Second, Pierre mentioned again, but this one I like a lot because sometimes people don't know what is happening. So we need to practice open and transparent communication so that as part of our organization, we have a shared understanding of what is happening. And then we understand then the ultimate changes in our mindset, in our behavior, so that we can deliver on the promise that we need. And you wouldn't be surprised, investing in employee training, it is paramount because we want employees to have the necessary knowledge and the capabilities so that we put them in a position where they can contribute and drive the sustainability initiative. I'll end with the fourth. And the fourth I like. Why? Because we are not operating in a silo, engaging the entire business ecosystem. This means what? It means that we need to have collective effort. We need to move beyond the border of our companies. And as we're doing that, we need to embrace several factors, including purpose-driven values, including adopting and aligning on sustainability standards, and ending with best value chain practices. So it is at least what the research has uncovered. Do it because it's the right thing to do, drive sustainability through empowered executive leadership, emphasize culture and employee development, and last but not least, engage the entire business ecosystem. There is more in the research, so we encourage you to download the research to dive deep in the findings. But now, let us not dive more on the finding of the research, but actually bring on board some of our panelists, move to the next part of the discussion today. So I'm pleased really to welcome on stage, linked with the Chief of Staff to the CEO at the Project Management Institute. I'm also privileged to welcome Mattsson, who is chairman and co-founder at Everimpact. I was mentioning that Jan sits on many boards, and Jan used to be the executive director of UNOPS, United Nations Office for Project Services, which is at the forefront on sustainability in the United Nations system. And then we have Tammy Ashraf, who is Earth Science System Integrator Manager at NASA. As I was talking with Tammy, I was saying, of course, data. Let the data talk. Let us not get into politics, but let's see the data surface, what we're seeing and acting on the data. So let us have other panelists. Yeah, sure. We can. Wonderful. So as a starting point, maybe an icebreaker here, I would like to hear from all three. First, of course, in terms of the research finding that we have, discover now, is there one thing that caught your attention? Either confirming what you already know or uncovering a new perspective? Let us start with Jan.
Well, actually, you gave us a difficult task by picking just one, because the report is very rich, and I have several favorites, not least in the interesting perspectives of leaders, followers, and laggards. I was really fascinated by the difference in drivers for sustainability between leaders and laggards. You showed a slide where 40% of leaders included because it's the right thing to do as a main motivator. And this was not included among the top 5 motivators for the laggards. They instead refer to pressures from customers, consumers, regulators, investors, etc. And I'd say, may this pressure continue to mount and have the same effect as with the leaders, namely that sustainability is ingrained as the right thing to do. Not because you have to do the minimum, but you become aware of the benefits of stepping up the game.
Thank you so much, Jan, for picking on that one. Let us bring Tammy.
Yeah, I think what really stood out to me was successful organizations are the ones who have resilient business strategies. And as a strategist, you really want to design a robust business model that can survive through rapid disruptions and changes. And oftentimes, sustainability gets overlooked in that strategy, in designing that resilient, risk mitigated strategy. So I think what was interesting to me was seeing how much that sustainability impacts the bottom line for business strategy, and found that there are correlations between sustainability implemented in a strategy and how it impacts the organization's revenue and risk. So that was very profound.
Thank you, Tammy. Thank you, Tammy. We are all linked. We are all linked. It's not a silo. And Lenka, what is striking you?
Well, there are a lot of very interesting insight in that report, and I was also really pleased to see that the actual real driver of success with sustainability strategy is being convinced that that is the right thing to do. But I didn't want to talk about that. I also noticed one number, it's written at the beginning of the report, and that says that 76% of the respondents believe that their employees should be more educated on sustainability. And I was thinking, yeah, that makes sense. It's kind of like this usual suspect, who should be educated employees. So I checked on the other end of the spectrum, what is actually the equipment and skills of the boards of the companies? How are they equipped to understand sustainability and drive that sustainability? And I found a very interesting report that was released just this January. It's released by a company that is surveying boards. And so they did a research of almost 800 boards of Fortune 500 companies. And then they found that only 2% of them would deserve a title of sustainability superstars. And that is, for me, very telling. So I think that the issue is not only that we need to educate more our employees on sustainability. I would say we all need to be more educated on sustainability and truly understand what it means. Because if we talk about let's be more sustainable, what it is in reality, what it is very specifically. The report also says, there is a quote in the report, which is not surprising, and that is that if we want to be ever successful with sustainability, we need to make it part of our daily jobs, of our daily operations, of our processes, of our daily decision making. But for that, we need to be able to break down the sustainability topic into more tangible steps. And the first step to get there is to start with understanding. And so I wanted to highlight that it's not only about employees or C-level, it's also about boards. It basically goes across the whole society.
Thank you so much, Lenka. Absolutely. It is not a silo within the organization itself. I mean, when you have a sponsorship from the executive and the sponsorship from the board as well. So everybody need to be immersed in what it means and what role they can play so that they can deliver on the promises that are made. Let us move to a second one. And that one is more on scalability. And this is a question that I will have for Jan. As we know, increasingly when we look at purpose, when you look at doing things right for companies, we know that these are all encapsulating social and environmental intents. And people will say, if you're starting a new business today, so what I will call maybe sustainability native organization, it seems like it is easier, or it might be easier for them. Then the question that people beg is, what about large companies, well-established companies, traditional companies? How can they build sustainability into their value proposition? And where do they start?
All right. Well, I'd say it's not only possible, but also necessary for all companies to integrate sustainability into their value proposition to align sustainability goals with business objectives. In case you have not yet started this journey, or if you move too slowly, you have two choices, as pressures will mount, whether from regulators, financial markets, consumers, customers, or even staff, including new potential recruits who might not even consider working for a company at the bottom of the sustainability totem pole. We have heard, I think, from almost all the speakers that this has to start from the top. Company leadership, the executive, have to be at the helm visibly. And thanks for also mentioning the boardroom here. Now, in case you don't know where to start, or if you need inspiration along the way, for now, let me just stick to 4 elements. If you haven't started to kickstart a sustainability journey, well, engage a consultant, or even better, hire a specialist to help assess your positive and negative environmental and social footprint to assess risks and opportunities. As a second one, educate board members, managers, and staff about sustainability, including regulatory changes. There are plenty of really good courses out there, and I can use myself as an example. Even with my sustainability background for decades, I took a certification course for board members in sustainability with a Canada-based company called Competent Boards, and learned a lot. As another very practical part of this education, I recommend to study leaders in your sector. For example, through the World Benchmarking Alliance reports of the 2,000 most influential companies globally. And as a former UN person, I certainly would like also to encourage membership in the UN Global Compact as a resource. Thirdly, well, you need to start to develop, implement, and continuously improve plans with clear targets, and ideally also incentives. I love the emerging trends to link executive pay not only to profit, but also to sustainability results. Maybe we can discuss this a little bit more. Let me add the advice to be open and transparent about progress and also about challenges. Avoid greenwashing. It's easy to get caught and very costly, as some big companies have learned the hard way. And the fourth thing I want to stress is to identify and invest in innovative solutions that enhance sustainability across the value chain. This may involve working with innovative startups, and certainly involves changing your business as usual routines for procurement, sales, after service, or commercial partnerships. So in a nutshell, these were some pointers that I'd like to bring up.
Thank you so much, Jan. And we'll go back to you, Lenka, on the benefits. and maybe probe you more, because one of the key, or the number one actually, key driver to sustainability effort, according to the research, was to seek better alignment with organizational goals, values, and overall mission. And it begs the question then, and I mean, I think Jan was alluding to it with some hints there. How can organization become balanced actually? They need to balance. How can organization balance a long-term view of being sustainable and doing good for the environment and for society with the short-term view, sometimes quarterly focus of providing financial results and meeting the demand of stakeholders?
Yeah, that's a very interesting question. And I have to say that I actually kind of disagree even with the notion of that question. It always really makes me think that there is fundamental flaw in this way of thinking, because it's not about balancing long-term contributions to sustainability versus short-term gains. We need to understand that companies, societies, we all live in one ecosystem and things are connected. There are industries which are driven by consumers that are already aware of sustainability impact, and they make their choices. And so we already see some industries which are heavily shaped by demand for more sustainable solutions. And so, for instance, in these industries, we talk about energy industry, automotive, transportation, agriculture, food production, or fashion. In these industries, it's not a choice of short-term gains and long-term objectives. If you want to stay in your business for a long time, you really need to understand your customer, your regulatory framework, you need to understand your business landscape, and then invest in innovation that keeps you in the game. Because they are consumers who are making these choices and demanding you to be sustainable. I personally hope that we will see transformation of more industries that actually were forced to transform towards sustainability. But again, I think that what is very important is to understand that we have to make a choice by ourselves. Are we as leaders interested only what's coming tomorrow? Or are we as leaders interested in long-term growth and sustainable growth of our companies? And if we are interested in the second, if we are interested in having a purpose that is more bold and more brave and really shows what we truly care about, then it's never a choice between short-term and long-term. And that's why I'm just coming back to that research. There was the thing that the leaders in sustainable strategies, which means companies that believe that when they invest in sustainability, it makes them perform better. Their financial results improve. These are the leaders in the sustainability strategy. These are the leaders that see benefits, that they can show how investing in sustainability contributed to their growth and success. So these leaders are distinguished from laggards by truly believe that sustainability makes sense. And I think that's everything. If we truly believe in it, then we make it our priority. And this priority is reflected both in daily actions and long-term thinking.
Thank you so much, Lenka. I like it, but I'll just go back to you one time on that one, because you see some CEOs of large organizations. Some of them can withstand the power or the pressure that is coming to them. I don't want to list names, but we will know of CEOs that will say, I don't care about the quarterly performance. What I'm looking at is long-term view, and then sometimes they dismiss. And then you have some other CEOs, because the data is showing it, that for some reason, there is a pressure somewhere that is making them looking at now. And we were even calling it tyranny of now, meaning that now, like what happens short-term takes. So what can we do for this? Is it society role? Who roles can help actually have more CEOs go to the corner of saying, no, it is short-term, I'm looking long-term?
Is that a question for me, Tahirou?
I'm opening that question just because I know some organizations are facing that challenge.
Well, honestly, I think you just need to have a good CEO, because the job of CEO, and this is I feel like we now moving to a little bit different topic, but the job of CEO is not to care about what is happening today, tomorrow. It's not about micromanagement. The job of CEO is to really set any organization for long-term success. It's about having that responsibility for consumers, for employees, for stakeholders, for people who are facing impact of whatever that organization is doing. And that is always long-term. That is never just about tomorrow, because, we face a challenge today and then we face another challenge. And, like we a little bit oscillate, performance is never stable. But if we want to stay in the business long-term, we need to think long-term. And for that, we really need to understand what sustainability is much more. That is not just about, packaging or supply chain. It's actually the whole system that we operate in. It's the way how we work with our customers, how we help to increase their awareness, how we help to increase awareness of our employees, so that then we can truly empower them to make better decisions and not to need to micromanage them on daily basis.
Thank you so much, Lenka. Thank you. I just wanted so that it is clear for everybody there. So really appreciate it. Let us move to the next one. The next one is about culture. And I want to bring Tammy on. Becoming, and as you saw in the presentation, that becoming sustainable often requires major shift in organization, especially the culture. So what cultural virtues do you think help foster alignment between employees and the sustainability strategy that organization is putting in place? And deriving questions: how can leaders engage the workforce around sustainability efforts? What trainings or engagement initiative should we implement in our organization to deliver on the promise we make? So there are many questions in the Tammy. Go at it in the order you feel like.
Yeah, thank you. I think first of all, that what stood out to me was it's the right thing to do, and which is the obvious. It is the right thing to do. And that's the foundation of your values as a business, as an organization. You do what you do and you operate because it's the right thing to do. And that's your ethics, your foundation of ethics. And, and I would challenge, go back and look at your organization's ethics policy. Is there even anything mentioned about sustainability in your ethics policy? Oftentimes there's a lot of guidelines about human conduct, which is true within the organization, but also what about the bigger picture? What conduct does your organization engage in with the community around it, with other business partners, right? And how does sustainability play a role in that? So think about that in a bigger picture in that context, and look at that foundation. And is there a gap? So assess if you have gaps there and start with that, build your foundation. And once you've started to build that foundation, then you can start to emulate those changes. And that starts again at the top. I keep hearing this over and over again, is that it starts with the people at the top, the C-level executives. They have to demonstrate and emulate those principles and values and behaviors of sustainability. And when they're modeling that, employees will see that and be more intrinsically motivated to emulate those behaviors and to follow as well. Something interesting also to mention is that you have values and principles, and especially when you're dealing with driving any kind of cultural change in organizations, it takes time. It's a slow moving process. It takes time because you're changing the normal way of how people behave and how they work, and the usual day-to-day operations of your business. And so to be able to drive those changes, you have to start with incorporating values and principles that resonate with people. And those things are highly intangible, but highly influential in driving change. If you try to drive change in your organization with processes or practices or tools, those are very tangible things, but they're not as influential as with driving change. And there is research behind this. This isn't just me telling you. There is research behind this. And so start with the values and principles, start with your ethics, take a review of what you have and see where are the gaps, and start to work with your business strategists and your operations folks and think about brainstorming what can we do to change and align our values with sustainability to be a more resilient organization now and in the future. And as I've heard, some of the previous panelists talk about, it's oftentimes businesses are in a very reactive mode to external drivers. Things kind of come from out of nowhere, and you're almost like it's called like a firefighter mode, where you're just putting out fires all the time. And you're too, as you mentioned, Tahirou, that it's like the tyranny of the now, where you're just focused on now, the profits of now, the funding of now, the revenue, the risk of now. And that short-sightedness is going to hurt you in the long term. So you really, yes, you do need to put out the fires, but while you're putting out the fires, think about what are the practices you can implement now so that when fires do happen in the future, you are more resilient and robust, and you won't have to allocate so many resources to put out those fires. You're more resilient and you've reduced the risks. So that's an important concept to also implement. And the reality is that, over 60 years of earth science data shows that the climate is changing, and the acceleration of that change is happening at a more rapid pace than people can keep up. And so what are you doing to be able to survive and thrive as a business in this ever-changing environment? It's, and then the social impact, the economic impact, the health impact, there's so many different impacts. So just thinking about the bigger picture context. But yes, I think that's, in a nutshell, what I would say is important to driving some of the cultural changes for sustainability.
Thank you so much, Tammy. And I just want to add, because whenever we talk about culture, and as highlighted before, changing culture is not something that happens fast. It takes time, as people often say. It requires effort. At the same time, planet Earth is, in dire situation. Where we need to act is now. So you need to change culture, but it is slow. And then you need to act today because the need is fast. So that dilemma is not necessarily easy to address. Now, let us move. We saw some questions coming from the chat. So we saw a few questions, but let us address them. I know, of course, we have right now sitting on 25 questions. We'll answer the one we could now, and then the one for which we don't have time to answer here, we'll make sure that you receive in a follow-up where we address the questions. There's one that is coming on standardization of sustainability at world level. That is coming from Udam Singh. What about standardization of sustainability at the world level, for example, pollution control? And then there is Gustavo, who is talking about comment on the 17 SDGs. I want to tie these together and ask, of course, I'm seeing the question and I'm thinking about you, Jan, but any Lenka, Tammy, is there something you want to offer on this question, standardization and SDGs?
Well, I can start with some reflections, and sometimes we refer to this as the alphabet soup of organizations and acronyms offering various standards. And it's good news that we begin to see more harmonization among those standards. Certainly from a company perspective, when you look at your own planning and the targets you set and the reporting that you do, it's a good thing not to invent your own KPIs and measures, but to look at what is out there and what is widely practiced and go for those things and see how you can contribute, for that matter, even to the development of such standards. The Global Reporting Initiative is certainly a way to look. The ISO standards like ISO 14001, principles of responsible investment, the UN standard, and I mentioned UN Global Compact earlier as well as something to look at in terms of their annual report required if you're a member, and a good thing, etc. So this is probably why it is good to have a chief sustainability officer on board, who is more of a specialist in those standards and who could bridge this into your company as well, so that you go for the right thing, because obviously you can't hit all keys on the piano. You have to focus on what is most relevant for your company.
Thank you so much, Ian. I'll ask the second one, and then of course, Lenka, Tammy, feel free to jump in if you have addition to Ian's answer. The second one is more from Joe O'Connor, and it is a question regarding what percentage of a project budget should be allocated to sustainability. I mean, project budget, also organization investment. Is there a magic number that should be allocated to sustainability? And I will tie that one to a question by Omid Fatmian, who is asking how to convince investors on sustainable system in project without increase on sustainable system price and make sustainable system cheaper. So this notion of price budget and making it cheaper, if there is any perspective that you would like to offer.
I think I'll take an attempt at trying to answer that question. So this gets into the how and like the more of the logistical implementation of what this would actually look like if we implement strategy. It's one thing to have it in your strategy and your ethics guidelines and your value proposition and your vision and mission statement, you know, and your goals, but then in actual execution and implementation in your business bottom line, you kind of have to do some trade-off studies and look at what types of realistic, feasible goals, metrics that you can set for yourself that you can achieve. And if you don't know where to start, there are a lot of really good examples online of other organizations that you can look at in your industry. And I would suggest, you know, looking there to look at similar use cases and reach out to those organizations. Potentially, you know, you can have strategic partnerships with them as well to understand and learn from each other and share those practices of what are those magic numbers they have, you know, for sustainability in their business model, and how much do they allocate, or what does that look like in terms of system implementation? You know, there could be 1,000 different answers for that. It all depends on what your organization line of business is, what industry you work in, what are your goals that you've set for yourself. There are a lot of really good examples. I mean, I did a simple Google search online and I found so many different ways of gauging and scoring your organization in terms of how it's achieving sustainability goals. So there's a lot of really good examples online. I hope that answers the question to some degree.
Thank you so much. Yeah.
Tahirou, if I may add to that as well. Again, going back to the point that to make it work, we need to embed sustainability in the things that we do. So, for instance, being sustainable doesn't always mean to be expensive, more expensive in your operations. So, for instance, if you shorten your supply chains, then you reduce your carbon footprint, but you're also cheaper because your supply chain, the transportation, requires less resources. It's shorter. If you use local products again, then you can basically save on other costs that you would need to have. Then what is, for instance, very interesting that when you deploy technology like AI or Internet of Things in certain industries, for instance, in farming, there is a technique which is called precision farming, and that is using of this technology to minimize impact on the environment, minimize the use of your resources, and at the same time to maximize the yield. So it's not magic, but it's just working with data. So you need to initially invest in that technology, but then long term, again, there is a return on this investment, and then it makes your operation again cheaper because you use your resources more efficiently. So I think that this is that mindset that we need to achieve, that when we invest in innovation in a way that we make our production, our operations more sustainable, it does not always necessarily mean that it's going to be more expensive. It actually can be cheaper. And it all comes with that mindset that sustainability is not kind of like a thing on top to do next to what we do normally, like adding. But if we make it part of what we do and think how do we innovate, but also innovate in a way that it's sustainable, that is cheaper, then it's better, then we can achieve results that from operational perspective are more efficient and sustainable.
Thank you so much, Lenka. And you know, I mean, during my time at the UN, usually we ask that question, and then people say cheaper and so on, and then we say cheaper in what horizon? You know, because often when we say cheaper, maybe it is the first cost, but sometimes it is also the life cycle. You know, the whole, because you may get something that looks cheaper today, but when you put it in the life cycle cost of an initiative, actually it's not the cheapest option. And you see it in many systems, be it roads, you can get something, but then next month it is damaged and then you need to spend more and so on. So going back to what you said, Lenka, sustainability actually, if one look at the longer run, it is apt to make things better, not the opposite. Yes, thank you for that. We're seeing also another question here from Asim Ayel. And the question is sustainability attainable in this complex and unchecked population pressure, and also a planet-wide developed world focus on military? So the link with sustainability, population, and then armament and so on. Like, if there is any perspective that any of you would like to offer.
Well, maybe not more than this makes our work on sustainability even more important to save the planet and to make it livable for people on the planet. Of course, it is challenging to see population growth and people using more resources, but that's the sustainability challenge that we need to address.
Yeah, absolutely, absolutely, yeah. And at our individual level, right, because population is growing, I mean, we need to see what type of behavior we need to adopt there. And then, of course, put the world in a better place where we are remote from a conflict and make the world a better, a safer place. Thank you. I know we're running, time is moving, and we're getting close to the end here. And I saw many questions that could be actually addressed in maybe a call to action that you will have. So as we get to end this session here, what is your call for action for executives, practitioners, project professionals, and organization? So again, you can take it in any order, but maybe let's go with Jan. If you come out of this, what is the call to action that you would have?
Well, what I take with me from this research and our discussion is that sustainability is important and it's urgent. Action is needed by many. And don't underestimate your range of influence, whether you're a small company or an employee in any company, or for that matter, a consumer. Move faster in doing what you can do before it's too late. Business as usual is not sustainable.
I would say, you know, as I said earlier, mentioned earlier, is go back and do some research on your company's ethics guidelines. And you don't have to necessarily be a C-level executive to go and do that. Just go on your company's website or ask your HR representative or someone, do we even have an ethics guideline for our company? Do we have anything like that? And take a look and see if there's anything in that guideline regarding sustainability. And if you see gaps there, then start opening some conversations with people, you know, in your organizations regarding how we can address this. Start to initiate dialogue and start the conversations to get people thinking about it, because I think it needs to start there. You know, that is the foundation of your company. And if it's missing in your values and in your vision and your mission and your goals and in your business purpose and in its ethics, then it's going to be hard to implement, because you need to have it in the foundation. So I would say start there, research there and see what you have. And then, you know, start having conversations to see how this can be implemented. That would be my call to action.
Thank you so much, Tammy. And Lenka?
Well, I would focus on education across all the levels. But in order to make it work, I believe it's not only about executives, who need to believe in the importance and urgency of sustainability. It's all employees that need to believe in that too. And that again leads us back to the purpose. Like, what is actually the purpose of that organization? So my call to action would be check your purpose. And if you're not happy with that, or if you're not happy with the impact that your organization is making, then start investing in education and raising awareness about sustainability. I will give you an example. There is a company in fashion industry, I believe you all know that, it's Patagonia. It's a company that has a purpose statement that focuses also on sustainability. They are basically communicating to everyone that their business is supposed to be successful business, but also sustainable. And that's quite a powerful statement, powerful purpose. But then in the same industry, you can find companies who might produce very similar products and then might be focused on fast fashion, on these short-term gains, etc. And if this is the purpose of the organization, then it's difficult for employees to believe that sustainability is an imperative and then it's important. So start with that purpose and do a check. Like, even if we have that purpose, are we really acting on that purpose or not? And then start investing in awareness. Help people understand that even if they are not CEO of the company, they are not on the executive level, like Tammy was saying, they still can have impact. But it's about breaking it down to more tangible actions that we can do.
Thank you so much, Lenka. And thank you, Ian, and thank you also, Tammy, for joining us and for sharing your insight on this research. And of course, for taking questions, again, live questions that there was no preparation for, and providing insightful answers to attendees. So this ends the final part of the presentation. So we're aiming now to move to the next stage. And I would like to thank you all for attending from across the globe here, this webinar. And again, the research is the result of a close engagement between PMI's Brightline initiative and Harvard Business Review Analytics service. And the research, as you saw, systematically unpacked the challenges, the drivers, the benefit of sustainability. And it also looked at what step we can take to drive sustainability strategies successfully. And as you'll hear and as you've seen, the clock is ticking and the time to act is now. I urge you to download a copy of this significant research, dive into the findings, and act. Addressing sustainability is inevitable. We can try maybe to close our eyes, maybe to close our ears, maybe to close our mouth, pretending it doesn't exist. Or we can try to lead it and elevate our world. Let us choose the latter. Thank you so much, and we wish you a great rest of your day. And the link for downloading the report is also shared here where you can find it. Thank you so much, everyone, for joining us.